This person bought a HDB flat because his mom asked him to. And there were a few reasons that led me to have that conclusion. First, he didn't show up for the viewing. Second, when I advised him to come down personally before placing the deposit, he simply replied that he trusts his mom and doesn't have to come. Now that really surprised me, as he was just letting his mom handle it. And I kept asking myself this question: why would someone leave such an important decision entirely to another person? Now, we always say that property is one of the biggest milestones in life. We talk about it like it is a critical part of wealth planning. But the more people I meet, the more I realize that it is not actually true for everyone. And when I started to reflect on my past conversations that I had with different buyers, I noticed something deeper, which is a pattern in how people think about property that is based on what they value most in life. So in this video, I want to share that observation I found, which is the mindset difference that lets some buyers watch their property value soar in just a few years, while others never see that upside. Short property stories from real conversations. By the way, I'm Gaynor, and I've met hundreds of property upgraders and investors, and these are their real stories. So if you want to avoid costly mistakes and make better decisions, do check them out, and the links are just below. Now, the story of the son and his mom buying the HDB reveals an interesting perspective, and yet a crucial message for all of us. From this incident, it was obvious the son didn't really prioritize his property purchase. Maybe for him, it was just about giving his mom a peace of mind. As long as she's happy with the unit, he's happy to proceed. And that's when I realized that everyone sees property differently. Some of us see it as just a roof over their head. Some see it as part of wealth planning. Some don't even think about it at all until they are forced to. And the reason why everyone sees it so differently is because we all have different sets of life priorities. And over the years, I've come to observe that people generally prioritize their life based on these 7 areas. And from these 7 life priorities, you'll notice that the order changes depending on which one feels most important at a specific point in their life. Take for example, if someone just graduated and is starting a career, then career and purpose might naturally be their top priority. If someone is getting married or having a child, family and relationships becomes more important. Likewise, if someone sees property as just a place to live, then it probably falls under family or happiness. But if they view it as a way to build long-term financial security, then it clearly sits under wealth planning. And this explains why some people make huge gains through property decisions, while others didn't, even though they could have. So does re-ranking this priority list actually make a difference? Now here's one family who re-ranked their priorities, and the results surprised me. Back in year 2017, this family made a decision to sell their 4-room HDB in Toa Payoh and use that to buy 2 private properties. Now, if they had held on to their HDB, its value would have grown from $538,000 to $750,000. That is an increase of $212,000. But because they took that step early, today their combined asset value has grown from $2.34 million to $3.25 million, an increase of $910,000. Now, I'm very sure you guys have seen other similar stories like this before. They planned ahead, made intentional moves, and understood why property sat high on their wealth planning list. On the flip side, there's another group of buyers, just like the HDB buyer, who see property as just a place to live. And it's not because that they are not interested in prioritizing property as part of wealth planning, but because their focus is elsewhere. So even when we run property seminars like what to buy or where to buy, they are not interested because they haven't seen a need to treat property as a wealth tool. Now, that leads to a bigger, more debatable question. Do we have to see property as a tool to build wealth? And the honest answer is no, and you don't have to. Now, some people simply just want a place to live, and that's perfectly valid. But after talking to hundreds of families, I keep seeing one pattern. Those who plan ahead and make intentional property moves are the ones whose property grow in value year after year. And those gains eventually give them the flexibility to fund things like early retirement, healthcare, or even their children's education. So the real question is, should you start looking at property as part of wealth planning? Now, to answer that, I think it's important to ask yourself these 3 quick questions. The first question is, what do you think your property is worth right now? And once you have that figure, move on to the next question. What might your property be worth 30 years from now? And do take into consideration both your age and your property's age. Now, for example, if you are 35 years old, your home is 20 years old and it's worth $800,000 today, how much do you think it will be worth when you are 65 and the property is 50 years old? Will that $800,000 value stay the same, go up, or even drop? And this leads us to the last question. If that's your predicted future value, would you be satisfied with it? Would that value give you the flexibility to fund your early retirement? If your answer is yes, that's completely okay. Maybe your current priority is stability, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if your answer is no, and you feel that the future value won't give you the options that you want, then maybe it's time to start treating property as part of your long-term wealth plan. So that's it for today's video, and I hope it gives you a fresh new perspective. Remember that the priorities you set today will eventually shape your future asset value. Gaynor from Property Made Simple. I'll see you in my next story.